you're in 4/4 or 6/8, there will be 2 chord changes per measure. That's perfectly acceptable. Or sometimes you'll get a second chord change in 3/4 on the third beat, usually not the second beat though. And then number 2 is 2 melody notes that skip are usually part of a single chord. All right? So 2 melody notes that skip are usually part of the same chord. All right, so these 2 you want to remember. I think most importantly, the idea is that if it's moving stepwise, then it's probably part of a new chord. If it's not, if it's skipping around, it's very likely that it's actually part of the same chord. Yeah. So you can also look at 10.15. They did some chord versions, 4 different versions that you could do with each, with the folk melody. And then we move on to the assignments. So assignment 10.1, you're given the first 2 chords. You're going to harmonize the melodies and use descending fifth progressions, right? So that means either a descending fifth or it's going to go up a perfect fourth. So down a perfect fifth, up a perfect fourth. Yeah. So I'm going to have you choose 2 of these. So basically, let me write this down on the board and I'll do it for you. Okay, so this is assignment 10.1. I'm going to do the first bit for you, the first one, and then you're going to choose 2 out of the remaining 3 to finish. So this is number 1. So 10.1, number 1. I'm just going to show you kind of how we do it. So the directions are at the top on page 225, but the actual assignments are on 226. So the first 2 chords of each phrase are given. After the first 2 chords, harmonize each melody in 4 voices exclusively with descending perfect fifth progressions. All right, so you're going to use root position chords exclusively, so no first inversions, don't worry about that. And then for maximum benefit, they say play each phrase on the piano. Go for it, you should. So what we're going to do is so our bass line has to move in descending perfect fifths, which means it can also move in ascending perfect fourths, right? Because they're just descending perfect fifths moved by an octave. So first thing we need to do is make our bass line, and we need to finish out our chord progression, right? That's going to go in descending fifths. So a descending fifth below 6 in our famous circle progression is a 2. And then from 2, we go to 5. And our famous perfect authentic 2-5-1 cadence, all right? So that's what we've got to work with. And now we just need to pop in the bass line, all right? So easy peasy. So we've got to go, let's start it with a bang. Let's go down a fifth. So we go down with our bass line to P5. Don't worry about making the bass line super smooth or anything like that. We're just doing root position. So no, you don't have to add in any extra passing tones or first inversion or anything like that to make it smooth. So this is, we're going to go down to a 2 chord. So we go down to the A, and then you can see we would be dropping really far below the staff, probably below what the bass can sing if we keep going down a descending fifth. So we're going to go down a descending fifth by going up an ascending fourth. So we're going to go up a fourth to D. All right. So normally this D would be down here. It's a little low though. So we're just going to pop it up an octave. It still counts as a descending fifth. And then finally, we can do another descending fifth and end on our tonic. So this is a very typical circle progression, right? So here it is. This is our circle progression. So we've got down a fifth, up a fourth, down a fifth, right? That looks like a 3. There we go, down a fifth. So ba-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da, that progression that we listened to on the piano. And now all we have to do is fill in the rest of the chords. All right, so we've got a 2 chord here. So why don't we, and again, the previous chapter that we worked on voice leading, all of those rules you're going to apply to this when filling in the middle voices. So if we're moving down a fifth, you want to keep the common tone. So we're going to keep our E in our A, C, E chord. So we've got E, and then we need to fill in the C because we have 2 A's, so we'll pop the tenor up to a C. And you just need to make sure that you don't have any parallel fifths. I think we look good. So the only ones that are moving in similar motion are the C and the A, which are a third apart, right? And the B and the G, which are also a third apart. So technically we have here between the tenor and the soprano, we've got parallel thirds, which are perfectly acceptable and even encouraged. All right, so parallel thirds are A-okay. We just want to avoid the fifths and the octaves. All right, so next chord. I'm going to erase this because it's a little confusing. Get rid of that, get rid of this, get rid of this. All right, so next chord, we move up to 5. Same rules apply. If we can keep a common tone, we will. Unfortunately, our common tone is, let's see, we've got a nice DFA chord, right? So A is our common tone, all right? But A has already been used down here in the bass and soprano, right? And those have already been decided for us, so we don't have a common tone to work with, all right? The bass melody has decided to put it here, and normally if we were not using root position chords, this might be, and we weren't coming to a very end of a cadence, we might use a 5-6 instead of a 5 to stick in that progression and keep common tones and follow the rules of good voice leading, etc. We could have stepwise motion, etc. So, but don't worry about it. So we don't have any common tones, so we just have to fill it in as we go. So let's pop the tenor down to A. And then let's have the, let's have the alto go down to D. So that will double the D. Okay? And notice we're following most of the rules of good part writing. We have the bass line moving up, and then everything else is moving down in contrary motion. So if you can't hold on to other notes, generally you want things moving in contrary motion to each other. All right, and then last but not least, we have our tonic. So again, same rules apply. If we can keep, we've got G major, so we've got G, B, and D in our chord. So if we can keep a note that's the same, like our D, right, down here, we will. So, oops, there we go. So we'll keep our alto on D, as per the rules of good voice leading, and then our tenor will just pop up to B. So move stepwise. All right, so it's not like the rules for good part writing are for naught. All right, so the second assignment that you guys have is 10.2. All right, and you're supposed to, they give you basically a chord progression, and you're supposed to identify how they're moving, right? So if they're moving the same, for example, this one they do say ignore the 164 and leave a blank where there is no chord change, all right? Otherwise, and here's where it gets confusing, and this is why I wanted to go over it. I'm going to have you guys do the whole assignment because it's actually not that hard. It'll go pretty fast. And I think the practice will be good for you guys. So when you're dealing with an ascending fourth, it's going to be known as a descending fifth, all right? So if you see here, this little list right here, all right, at the very top it says AS5 equals ascending fifth. It should also say that AS5 equals descending fourth. All right, so it's also its opposite. All right, same for here. Descending fifth equals DS5. DS5 is also ascending fourth. All right, so it's opposite. Same goes third and third. If it ends up being a sixth, right? It's the opposite. So ascending third, AS3, is ascending third or descending sixth, although more than likely you're just going to see that as an ascending third or a descending third. Same with the second. Sometimes you'll see it as a seventh. So just be aware. But the most common one is switching out these descending fourths. So if something's moving in a fourth, which we'll see in exactly 1 minute, it's going to be considered a descending or ascending fifth. All right, so this is number 1, and I'm going to have you do the rest. So we have 1 to 1, all right? So there's no chord change, so we leave it blank. Nothing happens, all right? Now here we have a 1 to a 4. Disregard the inversions, all right? Doesn't matter. It's still a 4 chord, so it's still moving in a fourth, even though 4 isn't necessarily in the bass. So here we have a situation where we have an ascending fourth, so we don't have the option to write ascending fourth, so what it is a descending fifth, okay? It falls into that category, so you're going to write DS5, all right? And then we move from 4 to 5, so that's an ascending second. All right, 5 to 1, descending 5. 1 to 2, ascending second. 2 to 5, now that's an interesting one. So that would be considered what? Going from 2 down to 5. So you can go either way, right? You can either call it, so this guy, because you're moving 2 to 5, right? You can go one way or you can go the other way, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So 2 to 5 is either moving, so this 2 to 4 would be up a third, 2 to 3 would be up a second. So you can either say that it's moving up or ascending by a fourth, right? And therefore, it's descending by a fifth, all right? Yeah. So 2 to 5 is descending by a fifth because it's moving up a fourth. And then finally 5, 1, also descending fifth. Okay, so that's how that works. Just stick to it. Those are your only options, the AS5, DS5, so ascending fifth, descending fifth, ascending third, ascending second, descending second. And that's how that works. You don't have to do 10.3.